الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The opening title regarding the protocols of successful self and family is a very profound title in the sense that it covers a lot of aspects of human development. We're living in times of great fasad and fitna, and it goes to show that the majority of people are not on the course for self-development. And this is, I don't know why this is. I think Muslims are becoming very complacent in their own mindset and heart set, and they're leaving everything for somebody else to do. And without realizing that each individual will be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by themselves, and they will not be able to ask anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The tribulations are now so close to home that Muslims are looking for a way out of it. This is fine as long as the way you're looking is the direction of the Quran and Sunnah. The problems that we are having, and I'll mention a few, and this is very few, is lack of deen in the home, no adhan is being called, no prayer, no reading of the Quran, and getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Watching rubbish on TV and computer, bringing shaitan in as your guest, smoking cigarettes and shisha, men folk not working. I don't believe the hype that there are no jobs out there. I don't believe that. Alhamdulillah, I'm 46 years old and I have never been in that job. And that reason being is not because I'm qualified in certain aspects of my life. It's because if I want to do something, I'll grab the bull by its horns and I'll do what needs to be done. And there are two mindsets, in my opinion, and that is the mindset of the first one when the milk bottle drops on the floor and it gets damaged. The first mindset, within a split of a second, millionth of a second, thinks water, bucket, mop, cloth. By that time, the milk has turned to cheese and nothing's been done. The second mindset, before the bottle hits the ground, the bucket is already there. Not literally, but the fact that the first one, the first mindset, the former, does what they feel like doing. And the second mindset does what needs to be done. And this should be the mindset and hearts of every single Muslim. You do what needs to be done. You don't complain about nothing. You don't complain what needs to be done. If a bird did doo-doo on your head, or on your face, we had some khabith, whatever, on your, not just on your arm or the clothes, would you leave it there because you think, oh. The first one would clean it out of ego. I think people laugh at that, but I laugh at him or her because of it. Because the ego will get in the way, the self-consciousness will get in the way. And the second one will do because it needs to be done. It's not supposed to be there. There's a difference in looking at things. So I don't believe the hype, there's no jobs out there. And the scenario in regards to this, as I've mentioned, is also the brothers that you ask them, why is it that you're staying at home all the time? I know brothers like this, I know of brothers like this, I know brothers like it as well, personally. And you ask them, why are you at home all the time? Like a woman or a sister, what are you doing at home all the time? There's jobs out there. If you can't find a job, then get trained. Renew, rejuvenate yourself. Don't complain. And these are the same brothers that complain. They have no money, they have no life, they can't buy this, they can't buy that. But they don't go out there and try and find a job. I can't work with kuffar, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's a stupid excuse. I'll tell you now, it's a stupid excuse. It's ridiculous. It's right, you're going to be out there, you're going to get married, you want to get married, and you want to have children, what are you going to do? What are you going to do then? It's a ridiculous notion to say, well, I'm taking care of my family, they say. What, and the people who are not working, who are working, and studying, and training, or all three, or one of them, not taking care of their family? And someone to look upon you and say, oh, look, oh mashallah, that brother's staying at home looking after his family. The lack of communication between spouses, parents and children, siblings, no listening skills. Me, myself and I. I'm the dad, you shut up and listen to me. I'm the mother, you shut up and listen to me. I'm the husband, shut up and listen to me or I'll smack you in the head. This is the scenario, this is the reality we're living in. This is exactly the reality we're living in. I deal with it all the time. Domestic violence, and drugs, and everything else. And not about non-Muslims, but Muslims. No plans, but only dreams. Forced marriage and so-called honour killings. So you bring up your daughter the way you don't want them to bring them, by putting them inside the schools, which is like putting them inside the cage of the lion. But when they get scrapped, you complain. When they run off with some Hindu or some guy you don't want them to run off with, you blame her for it, you might as well kill yourself. It's your fault. It's not a girl's fault. If you want to know what kind of father, you know, a child has, you look at the child. To see the teacher, you look at the student. To see the parents, you look at the children. Every child is a sponge. If they become what you don't want them to become, look in the mirror. Look in that mirror and ask them some serious questions. Where I went wrong. Not when my daughter, don't shift blame. When my son went wrong. Racism and nationalism amongst us. Even now. And if you have any racism or nationalism in your heart, you'll remove that thing. Because it's a disgusting, despicable notion to believe that you think yourself better than somebody else because of the colour of your skin or the colour of your passport or what country you came from. You may say, I'm better than you because I'm from Pakistan. And not only am I better than you because you're from Pakistan and I'm from Pakistan. I mean, I'm not, I'm just doing this. But you're not from my village. So I'm better than you. Not only not from my village, I'm a stronger caste than you. I'm a Chaudhry. And you're a Rai, or a Rai, or a Nai, or a Barber, or a farmer. So I'm better than you. And who told you that? Who gave you that information? That proudness, that resilience and complacency, that you really believe that you are someone better than somebody else. I'll tell you who gave it to you. Shaitan, your best friend. That's who gave it to you. Because you abstain from the Quran, you abstain from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and you expect yourself to live your deen according to the way you think you should live your deen. Because that's as much as you want to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمُ الشُّعْبَ وَالْقَبَائِلَ تَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِندَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. O mankind, I have created you from a single male and female. Allah is telling you this. The one who created you. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the one who originated you. When you were nothing. He's telling you, the whole of mankind, not Muslim and non-Muslim. Ya ayyuhan nas, every single human being. I created you from a single male and female, made you nations and tribes to recognize each other, not despise each other. And Allah is saying this to you, that the better one in my eyes, the one who has most taqwa. And you say, well, I'll leave that. I still believe I'm better than this person because I'm black or I'm white or I'm brown or I've got a British passport or I've got a Pakistani passport or whatever. This is disgusting. I don't mind saying it. The young and the old. Get rid of it. And that shows me that that person has very, very lack of self-esteem and self-belief in his heart about himself. He has to put others down. Internalize that. Putting that down. Internalizing that. Putting down. Really believing. Because he may say to you, I love you for the sake of Allah. I love you for the sake of Allah. But yet when it comes for him to marry his daughter, he'll say no, because you're black. Or you're not from the same caste. So the role of the father, the first role of the father is to teach your children the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What the Quran is about. What the Sunnah is about. What Ahl al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah is about. Not you say, I follow the Quran and the Sunnah. And I am part of Ahl al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. But he goes and makes 12 around the grave. Or asks the graves for things. Or dances about like the extreme Sufis. Like monkeys in a zoo. And thinking, yeah, I'm on Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And you have to have the Aqidah and teach your children as they're growing up what is right and what is wrong. Teach your wife the same thing. So when you're not there, you know that she's holding the thought. That you're not saying one thing and she's saying something else to confuse the children. The same way when you both argue in front of the children, or the father says one thing and the wife says something else, or vice versa. One of the best marriages, a successful one, is that the husband and wife have the same mindset about how to bring them. It's like sitting there when you have children now, right? Well, let's make a plan of how we're going to bring them up. Just because you have children does not make you automatically a good father and mother. Where did the notion come from? You don't go out there and say, I'm going to start a business, and you give 50,000 investment without even finding out what that investment is about. So you love your money more than your children. You start making a business plan before you start trying to put that business in. And wasting your money, maybe. It's a big risk. But you don't mind having children and saying, alhamdulillah, I'll let my children grow up by chance. I'll blindfold them and send them out the door. But that's what we're doing. It's exactly what you're doing. You're blindfolding your children, you're sending them out the door to hope for the best. When they come back the way you don't want them to come back, you start blaming them. When it's your fault. It's your fault at the end of the day. The role of the father begins where? Tell me. I just want to sit here and you're watching a film. You're not watching a film here. Where? When you get married? Anyone else?
Before marriage.
When does the role of the father start?
Birth.
Whose birth?
Child's birth.
Anyone else?
Before marriage.
It starts with yourself. If you've got issues, that's what you will have if you haven't get one. It starts with yourself, each individual person. Before you even, when you become Muslim, you don't become Muslim just because my friend become Muslim, do you? Oh, a great Pakistani friend, and I want to, because he looks good, and I want to be the same, I want to look like that. It becomes like a novelty, do you? You don't do that. You have yaqeen, you have certainty, don't you? In the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything that He sends. You have certainty here. The same with yourself. You can have certainty, but I know, brothers and sisters, I know the majority of brothers and sisters, the majority of human beings are lacking in self-esteem, in belief in themselves. That's why when you feel like sometimes you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, because you sabotage what you think you don't deserve. And you go around blaming everybody else. You're blaming everybody else but yourself. You expect everybody else to do it for you. Oh, why is that brother harsh? Why don't he drop his guard? You're recognizing that guard because that guard's in yourself. You're mirroring that guard. You drop your guard and become vulnerable, you see the vulnerability in everyone around you. Then you'll be a good shepherd. Then you'll be a good shepherd. If you don't recognize the vulnerability of your sheep, you can never be a good shepherd. But when you're growing up in this society, without any self-development, alhamdulillah, Allah gives you an injection of a little bit of iman, whatever it may be, and you're flying for a couple of years. And then what happens? You balance out. Then all the baggage, where the shaitan is waiting for to remind you, comes through. Then what do? It starts with yourself first. To know who you are, where you're going. Again, grabbing the bull by its horns and do what needs to be done. When you're sure of yourself and you know you're manly enough to take on the world, you get married. So I can take on a wife. Literally. You take on a wife. Then when your marriage is based upon the Quran and Sunnah and the strength of aqidah and everything else and self-esteem and loving and caring, let's have children. Then you'll be a good shepherd, understanding what it is. Because when that child comes to you and doesn't recognize their own emotion, and you can't deal with that, and you push them aside, they're going to grow up harder than you are. Without understanding their emotions, anger, frustration, rage, because they weren't given the opportunity to be vulnerable. The daughter comes to you, about this, okay, don't bother, I'm too busy. Because you're not busy. You're too busy to involve yourself in the emotions of that child. And rearing children isn't just about, oh, she's fed, nappy, clothes. What more do they want? What about love and affection, understanding how they feel? And ask them, how do you feel, my daughter? How do you feel, my son? So they can understand about what emotional intelligence is about. the emotional intelligence to understand what it is I'm feeling now. What is this feelings? That's when people get depressed. The depression isn't because there's something wrong with the mind. The depression is because there's something wrong here in the heart. This is the problem, not the mind. The psychology of the West is based on trying to sort out the mind of stresses. When it doesn't work out, when the psychologist can't do it, and can't say, I'm sorry, I can't help you, they say, what? And prescribe you some psychotic drugs. That will help you. That will remove my responsibility, because I couldn't help you, so this means just put you to sleep. That's what they do. But all the solutions of the Ummah, all the solutions of humankind is resolved by Islam. By recognizing that the diseases are not diseases of the mind, but they are diseases of the heart, and nothing more. And qalbu amir al-jasad, that the heart is the amir of the body. Wal-a'dha jaysh al-jasad, that the limbs are the army of that body. So whatever's in here will come out. You cannot live in conflict unless you're a pure hypocrite and you're happy with it. You're a pure hypocrite. But anyone that's an atom's weight of iman cannot live in conflict. That's why when you sin, you feel bad and guilty. That's what Rasulullah said, another tawbah. That feeling guilty and regret is part of tawbah. The inclination, I just don't feel right. I must have been sinning, there's something wrong. So you don't purify this. This is purified by this, which will stop you from the thoughts. That's why intentions start wrong, and the actions will result in the wrong. Allahu Akbar. So the role of the father begins with himself. His understanding of who he is, his awareness of himself as a human being, his recognition of the truth, his accepting the truth and his purpose, his resilience to taking care of his future in dunya and akhirah, his ability to serve Allah Ta'ala through his dunya and his family. There's just a few things, but it starts with yourself first, and who you are and where you're going. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Tahrim, يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. O you who claim to believe, save yourself and your family from the hellfire. Save yourself first. You're no good trying to be a candle giving heat and light to everybody else, and you're burning yourself away. When you burn yourself away, you start getting jittery in your heart because you feel depressed and down and don't know what the solutions are for your life. What solutions? Where is the solutions? If you're not following the Quran and Sunnah, you don't look in the Quran and Sunnah for the solutions, where are you going to find them? Yes, we know Allah says, if you don't know, then ask those that know. But if you don't look in the Quran and Sunnah first, and you try and find somewhere else, Allah will not allow that. This is why you're not going to get the Sharia through democracy and everything else. You're not going to get it that way. That's what Allah's way. As regards to the verse, I just mentioned at the beginning, Ibn Kathir says, Qatada said about this verse, he commands obedience to Allah. That's what he commands first, his family, himself. First, you command yourself to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But brother, we're stressed. I've got work out there, I've got to get travel to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and this and that. What do I do? Bang. What do I do? You've got to make time. The same way, look, we're not children here, right? Some of you are. We're not children here. What I'm trying to say is, you have to understand that you've got to take responsibility sometime in your life. As soon as there's a problem, it's how you perceive. It's how you perceive that problem. Is it a problem, or is it an opportunity for you to move forward? How do you look at it? Is it a punishment from Allah, or is it a test? How would you know it's a punishment or a test? You check yourself. If you're sinning too much, then you can say it's a little bit of punishment and a wake-up call. Commands himself not to disobey Allah. And most people don't understand the concept of sinning. They become khawarij in regards to that. I've sinned, I'm finished, Allah's not going to forgive me, I'm done for, blah, 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 blah. If you find yourself in a hole, are you going to stay in that hole? You're going to try and get yourself out of that hole and dust yourself off. and say sorry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you make tawbah and you carry on. And to the next hole. It's not going to stop. It will never stop. And these days you find brothers in the hole to try and help them. I'm sure sisters find sisters in the hole who want to help as well. You give them a rope to pull them up. And they struggle to come up because they don't want to come. They like it there. It's less responsibility, less accountability. They love it in that hole. And when they come halfway, they realise they can't get out. They try to pull you in there as well. Well, you let go of the rope because you have to. I'm going to help you out the hellfire, inshallah, but I'm not going to join you. You let go of the rope, they blame you. You left me in here. No, you left yourself in there. You left yourself in there. And he orders his family to obey Allah and to disobey him. But in this regard, if the shaitan can't get to you directly, he will use your spouse to get to you, or your children to get to you, or your best friend to get to you. And you've got to be aware of that. You've got to be aware of this deception of shaitan and how he works. But the Masa'id of shaitan, the traps of shaitan, you've got to know how he works. And recognize, oh, shaitan couldn't get to me yesterday because think about it, it's got you to come to me. The same way if somebody comes to the backbite, we're afraid to say to brothers and sisters sometimes, didn't shaitan find anyone else to bring that news to me and found you? Just like Rasulullah said to the man. Because we haven't got the bottle. We haven't got the iman. We're afraid, oh, that may say something, and we don't want to hurt the feelings of that person. But who cares about the feelings of that person when you've got to worry about your own feelings in front of judgment, in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the judgment day, to be honest with you. And what kind of friend are you and brother are you when Rasulullah said, Al-Mu'min Murat al-Mu'min, that the believer is a mirror for a believer, when it comes to a situation to say something to your brother, you're afraid to say it. Yeah. You're afraid to say it. Because your self-esteem doesn't allow you. I'm going to lose him as a friend, and I'm going to lose my only and true friend. When your only and true friend should be Allah alone. And everything else will come into play. And I've always mentioned it the same way. If my friends cannot tell me, Brother Ramiz, where you're going wrong, I don't want you being in my company. Wallahi, I don't. Get out of my face. You're no good to me. You say you love me, but you see me doing wrong, and the shaitan's made me go, loopy about it. I'm blinded to it, and you don't tell me. But if I find out you knew and you never told me, I'll say Assalamu alaikum to you. You're no good to me in my life. My Islamic life, my movement towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're no good to me. And sometimes we're like that to ourselves. Look in that mirror. Look in that mirror. And ask yourself some serious strategic questions. Who you are, where do I need to be, etc. Our endeavours in success on this is where Rasulullah said in a hadith, a father gives nothing better to his child than good tarbiyah and character. So we shouldn't worry about pushing our children in dunya to become doctors and engineers as compromising the deen. But if they're on the deen, alhamdulillah, and they want to do something in the dunya, no problem. But if that dunya is going to overtake their deen, then it's a no-no. It's a no-no. And I will never advocate sending your children to university before they get married. I would never advocate that. So what kind of good character are you going to build your children if you send your children to the schools of this country? But what's the alternative, brother? What are we going to do then? Well, I'm sure if all of you here, 10 families had children, you're going to get 10 of you together and have Islamic schools. Which you've got one here, alhamdulillah. Or home ed, home education, home group. It's not obligatory to send your kids to school in this country. The council will come down and ask you why. Because I'm home educating my child. As long as the child gets 3 hours a day of English, maths and science and one art subject, which can be form of a language or calligraphy, or art, something like this, then that's not a problem. Because believe me, if you send your children to the schools, in these schools in this country, I was born here, I know what it's like for schools. In my day, that was about 30 years ago. Now, who goes to school here? I'm not going to ask you what goes on, because I think you know, I already know. It's not as good. Then they put the programs on, on TV, like Simpsons. And the Simpsons He's a self-confessed anarchist, this guy who produced this program. And he wants the problems to occur in the family. He wants the problems to occur. What's the main theme of The Simpsons? What is the main theme? To make the father look stupid. That's the whole thing, this program. To make the father, the head of the family, the one that everyone looks up to, that this man is stupid. When the kids watch this, they disrespect the father. Because it's easy to put it in front of the TV, switch it on so you can have time to yourself. Isn't it? But then the result of the consequences of that, you're still going to take, whether you take it now or later on, but you're going to take it. Because they're your children, no one else's, they're your responsibility. Our endeavours in achieving success is basically, obviously, first of all, teaching your children the deen. Al-Islam, what it's about. But that means first getting yourself a good foundation in deen. Not send your kids to the madrasa and say, alhamdulillah, my kid goes to madrasa and you're not even praying. I think you're saved, your kid's going to save you. You'll save yourself, inshallah. But how are you going to save yourself? It's okay, bro. Me and Allah like this. Really, me and Allah like this. I talk to him every night. It's sorted. I mean, he told me it's fine. He's preserved and reserved my place in Jannah. It's sorted. Don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself. Don't tell me about praying with that. Don't. It's fine. Because his understanding of Iman is not the real understanding of Iman. He's confusing Al-Islam and Iman. He's confusing Rubiya and Uluhiyya. Mixing it all up like a aqidah soup. No understanding, the correct understanding of foundation. When I get brothers ringing me, brother, I'm a bit confused. I try to give the Christian dawah and I end up getting confused. He will confuse you because unless you have a strong foundation of aqidah, you'll always be confused if you try and give dawah to somebody else. Because they have full knowledge of understanding of their kufr. But do we have full understanding of our iman? Or are we just learning it ad hoc? A tape here and a CD there and a salam there and a hadith there, etc., etc. You will teach your family about life skills, and what it's like out there. Again, not blindfolding your children and yourself and walking out that door. You'll never do that on the M40 on 3 o'clock in the afternoon, would you? Blindfold yourself across the main road. And that is what most of us are living our life like. That's how our life is led. Blindfolded. We look the part. As long as everybody sees me that I look like a Muslim, it's sorted. What I do by myself in my heart doesn't matter, as long as no one sees it. Allah sees it. You'll know your taqwa. You'll know your level of iman. You'll know your level of taqwa when you're by yourself, when you're alone, and what you do. That's a good place to start. But you've got to drop your guard. You've got to drop your defences. You've got to become authentic with yourself. If you can't tell yourself, and you can't drop your guard, don't expect the rest to drop their guard. When you drop your guard and become vulnerable, you'll see the vulnerability of the people under you. Teach them the seerah, the history of the life of Rasulullah, the history. Allah tells you what to do in the Quran, the Sunnah shows you how to do it, and the seerah shows you how it was done. It's very simple. It's very simple. But yet, we want to allow ourselves to live the deen through ad hocly, just by chance. I'll do it tomorrow. Procrastination, tasweef, doing things tomorrow what you can do now or today. At the same time, when you have as a father, self-development in yourself, recognizing your own weaknesses and trying to strengthen them up, increasing your strengths and understanding the deen, you need to understand your family's weaknesses, their emotional weaknesses. And the biggest problem that there are in families that is breakup is communication. The wife tries so many years to try and communicate with the husband, doesn't want to know. Talaq. The husband tries so many years to try and communicate with the wife. No joy. Talaq. Children want to communicate with their parents. No joy. Unbelievable. That's the issue, because you can only bounce against that wall so much. Until you wear your nails and your skin down to the bone. Then what? And sometimes kids don't leave because they're no good. You know, husbands want to give talaq because the wife's no good. The wife doesn't ask for khula because husband's no good. It's just it's a wake up. No, it's come to this stage. It's come to this stage, my husband. It's come to this stage, my wife. It's come to this stage, mum and dad, that I've got no choice but to say this. And then what happens? The husband thinks, oh, the wife's no good, I must give it to her anyway. Because Shaitan, his best friend, hasn't learned the deen. Now I'm going to push my husband to give me khula.
Yeah.
And I'm going to push my parents to push me outside the house. There's no communication. Because nobody wants to, everybody's stuck here, from here up here. It's all about here. Nothing about here. No, don't get emotional. I'm not an emotional guy, I'm a tough guy. I'm a toughie. I'm Don Corleone. You do as I say, or get out. That is it. Is it that's what it's come to. Because the ego is so big that it's about control. You're either in control of your own emotions, or somebody else is in control of your emotions. And the main body of that is other people in control of their emotions, because you're not. My brother, I've got an anger problem. I hit my wife. I've got a rage problem. Not hitting, beating, on a regular basis. Oh yeah, because she said this to me. Because he done this to me. Yeah, and wives hit husbands as well, by the way. So, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? I don't like, my brothers know, I don't like just coming here and talking as if you're watching a film. I always mention that. That bit was good, I still like that bit. I'll be resistant to that. Find out why you're resistant to certain things you hear from people that give talks and lectures. Because your ego is not ready to change on that one. That's when you're resistant to it. Someone comes to you and says, "Bro, I think you're proud." What do you mean I'm proud? Yeah, sit. I'm just telling you because I love you. I think you've got a, lowering your gaze problem, you've got a drug problem. I see the other day drinking that. No, bro, that wasn't me. Oh, I was lying, wasn't it? I'm seeing things. A jinn took your form or something. It's about recognizing who you are and where you want to be. But you can't go to B if you don't know where your point A is. And most people are living their life in the past and then dreaming about the future because the present is too hard to follow. It's too hard to deal with. So they dream about who they want to be. It's their being in the present, recognizing their mistakes, grabbing the ball by its horns and doing what needs to be done, and heading towards that plan of that future. No harm in looking in the past and learning from your mistakes so you won't make the same mistake again, or looking in the future and seeing where you want to go so you can adjust the present to it. Because if you don't adjust the present, you can't say, it's been 10, 15, 20, 30 years and I'm still in the same spot, and I've always wanted to learn Quran, always wanted to go and study, always wanted to do this business, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. You're not going to do nothing until you come back from the future to the present, come back from the past to the present, and see where you are. What are my options here? How am I? What kind of person am I? Remember, although your family are sheep, they're not stupid. They're intelligent sheep. They will allow you to be a shepherd, but they won't allow themselves to be oppressed. Not for the rest of their life, anyway. So parents, you take control of the bull and do what needs to be done. Give yourself time to learn about yourself, your being and your emotions, anger, rage, control, listening, no communication skills, understanding where you want to be from this point onwards. What kind of father you want to be? The same father that you should be as you think you should be, hard, toughy in the house, or you'll be soft when you need to be soft and hard when you need to be hard. That's what a shepherd is. That's what the shepherd has a stick. Not for stopping himself from falling over the rocks, but sometimes some sheep are a bit stubborn and they need a little kick up the backside, so to speak, to move. Because if they don't, the wolves are coming. And believe me, I've done shepherding here, and you've got to lose a few sheep to save the flock. You will lose a few sheep to save the flock. You can't let all the sheep get sacrificed. Some sheep are stubborn. Come on, let's go, the wolves are coming. And in this case, the wolf is the hellfire. And some of your family members don't want to know, so come to it, no problem. I'm not going to go in that direction with you. I've got things to do, places to go, so much to do. Let's look at some of the fathers of the past. Let's look at Surah Luqman, where he said to his son, "O my son, perform salah, enjoin the good, forbid the evil, and bear patience whatever befalls you." What advice there is. What advice do we give our children? Don't do that. Do this. Don't do that. Do this. It's all about control. That's all it's about. Yes, there is times where you have to smack the child. There are times. But most of the time, you can get through to that child and make that child respect you and do what you want them to do for their benefit and your family's benefit without the need to touch. And yet these people in this country, oh, you can't touch because it's politically correct. If I didn't get beat when I was younger, I wouldn't be here now. Allahu A'lam. I look at it, I think, yeah, I needed a few licks here and there. Trust me. Alhamdulillah. I come from a Turkish background. La ilaha illallah. That was it. That was it. Hit by appointment. It's not today, I'm getting it tomorrow. Because I know myself. Can't help it sometimes. But most of it is rebelliousness. You're trying to get through the communication. And Allah bless my parents, bless everyone's parents. It's not easy. My brother rang me up and said, I want to give da'wah to my father, he's not accepting it, etc., etc. I said, that's the hardest thing to give family members da'wah because there's a conflict of interest. They will see your emotion build up because you're afraid for them to go to the hellfire. You know, they will see, oh, you just come out your mum's womb and you'll come and tell me what to do. It's hard like that. It's about patience, inshallah. So when we look at that, the surah also says, don't walk with men with pride nor walk in insolence through very Allah likes to let any arrogant boaster, and be moderate in your walking and lower your voice, whereas the harshest of all voices is the braying of a donkey. This is the advice of Luqman to his son. SubhanAllah. So what does the advice show? It shows that the concern of the father for the well-being of the son or the daughter in aspects is the fact that it's not about just saying dunya and accepting dunya. It's about teaching life skills. And our Islamic life skill, okay, our Islamic life skill is recognizing what shirk is, what kufr is, what iman is, what aqidah is. This is life skills. Because when you're out there and you're surrounded by kufr and shirk, and you don't recognize what kufr and shirk is by degree as well, just because you're praying 5 times a day, whether it be the hijab and niqab, and you're not bowing down to idols physically, doesn't mean you're safe from shirk. Doesn't mean that. When you're in the street and your eyes lay upon people you're not supposed to lay your eyes upon, and you don't move away for the sake of Allah, and the shaitan comes, whispers to you quickly, move your eyes away from the person who looks at you, and you turn your eyes away. How many sins is that? It's 2. Allah, the first for looking, and the second for moving away for the whisper, not for the sake of Allah. Because the sake of Allah is you're looking, it's not for to turn away. The shaitan is very, very clever. Or the shirk riyah, the showing off. I don't show off in my salah. You know you can commit shirk by not doing an action the same way you can commit shirk with doing an action. You go into the masjid and say, shaitan comes to you and says, don't pray, people will look at me praying. So you don't do it. That's shirk. That is shirk. Whether it's akbar or asghar, it doesn't matter. They're shirk. You didn't do a righteous action because you're afraid people are going to watch you. That's shirk. So these are intricate parts of the deen that you need to learn. So these are skills, life skills, so you can save yourself out there. Again, you'll never go to a forest and say to your son or your daughter, don't blindfold you, just walk straight through the forest and I'll see you on the other side, knowing there's wolves and bears and traps and quicksand, everything in there. Would you? But that is what we're doing. That is the reality we're doing to our children, because we're not teaching the deen the way we're supposed to teach the deen, because we don't know ourselves. I think I remember mentioning here before that if you've got a GPS system in your car and you tap in your postcode, don't tell me you don't have 100% yaqeen in that GPS, that TomTom. You do. And you end up in the ditch or in the river like some people. Isn't it? You put the postcode, whatever it may be, W2, 3PS, whatever. And that's it, you drive. Alhamdulillah. Next roundabout, take the second exit, go straight ahead. No, alhamdulillah. Turn right at the lights, no problem. And you end up over the cliff. Which is the hellfire. Allahu Akbar. But our GPS, we type in is Jannah. And our TomTom is the Quran and Sunnah. And we don't trust that as much as we trust an electronic gadget. So we don't kind of expect anything and blame no one if we end up in hellfire. That's the result. So, as a father and a husband, you've got to give the children and your wife the correct GPS, the correct input. And those of us who come from backgrounds of a non-Islamic nature, the original non-Muslim, there are more things to remove, superstitions and astrology and all these things. Remove it. You know, people say brainwashing. No, Islam washes the brain. It washes it from erroneous ideas and superstitions and how you believe in things, etc. Black cat. With me, if I see a ladder, I walk underneath it directly. Even though Shaitan still says, you know you're going to get bad luck all day. Yeah, he does. He whispers to me. Yeah. You're going to get bad luck all day. I don't care. It's going to come from Allah. That's it. That's how you purify your intention. The same when you come to pray, and the Shaitan says, don't pray. Allah, the kid's going to, the brother's going to see you pray. You say, Allah, you know I'm doing this for you, and you leave it. Even if the Shaitan comes still whispering to you, you know Allah, you've already made your intention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sufyan al-Thawri, he said the hardest thing to purify for me was his intention. So who are we? In his third generation, who are we? Yeah. You've got to hold fast. Hold fast. And most of the issues that we pass on to our children are not our issues, are they really? Whose issues are they? Our parents. Not that we're blaming them. I'm advocating blaming your parents. I'm advocating here very simply that you become an upright person, assertively respectful, that when you see things wrong in the family or at home, whether it's your parents or your wife or your children, that you know how to stop it. And say, Mum and Dad, I'm not going to obey you on that matter because it goes against Allah. Because it goes against Allah. So I respect you, Mum. I'm not going against you. But on this point, I'm going to go against you because it goes against the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how you've got to be brave enough. Assertively respectful. No, you have to marry your cousin back home because I promised you to them when you was in the womb. And you look at her or his photo and it is much to be desired. There's no feelings whatsoever. But then you go along with it because you don't want to cause fitna. And you get married, 3 years down the line, I can't deal with my wife, I can't deal with my wife. Because you haven't built development strong enough to have this certainty and say, no Mum, it's not going to happen. I'm going to wake up with this person, not you. I'm going to deal with the arguments with this person, not you. And that's very important. And it means having the cognitive skills and the listening skills to talk to your parents and communicate. Not just talking, but communicating. Just because you've eaten a plate of food, does it mean you're nourished? Not at all. Have you eaten, but are you nourished? I've eaten. I didn't ask you that. Are you nourished? Is what you're eating nutrition enough for you to help your body? Brother, you told me last week that you had problems at home with your wife. Have you communicated with her? Yeah, we spoke. That's what I asked you. Did you communicate what you wanted to communicate? I tried, but she didn't get it. She didn't get it because you never communicated. You've got to communicate what you want to communicate, which means dropping your guard and being vulnerable. Trust me, a wife can look at her husband and say, this is the most harshest, hardest person I married in my entire life. He will never break. He will never cry. He will never. But if she dropped her guard and became pretty and pinky and submissive and emotional long enough, you'll break his. But don't expect to break his first. The same way the husband looks at the wife and says, she's not obedient to me, she doesn't love me, or who did I marry? I made a big mistake, I might as well give her talaq. And the shaitan says, yes, do it! Do it! Be the man! Go, do it! Talaq! Do it! Do it! Be a man! Drop your guard. Drop your guard, let her see your vulnerability, that you're a human being. You're not this ogre that she perceives you because you've made yourself looked at. You defend your defense mechanisms out here. You know? You've got tanks and you've got, you know, missiles and M16s and big air right in front of you. You can't get to me. I'm protecting this vulnerability. Why are you protecting it? Because when you're growing up, you wasn't allowed to be vulnerable. You're pushed aside, your emotions were pushed aside. But now, alhamdulillah, you've been woken up that it's a possibility for yourself to remove this guard and still be safe. Remove this guard and still know that you won't be hurt. Your wife doesn't want to hurt you. Your husband doesn't want to hurt you. Your mum and dad doesn't want to hurt you. Your children don't want to hurt you. They want to be heard. That's all anyone wants to be, is heard. Recognize that they're alive. Recognize that, yes, I am a wife in this relationship. Yes, I am a husband in the relationship. Yes, I am a child in this relationship. Yes, I do have children. Not just moving animated human being or animal to control. Because I'm afraid to lose control. And that's the big thing, you're afraid to lose control. As long as they obey you in all matters, good and bad, you're in control, you're happy, because that is your hierarchy of value. That's your hierarchy of value. If you want to know about how to be a good father, is look at the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How kind of good father he was, and the pious predecessors. And finally, I want to just touch upon and introduce you to hierarchy of values. In regards to hierarchy of values, in this concept, a value is what you spend your time, energy, money, effort in. And most of us, our hierarchy of value is to have that control. As long as my wife obeys me, I'm happy. As long as my children obey me, I'm happy. As long as they do what they're told to do, I'm happy. But how long can that be? Because if they obey you in nonsense, they're going to be in conflict, and you're going to take the consequence of that conflict. The idea is to know and understand how to be just through your vulnerability, and say to your wife, look, my hierarchy of value is my deen and my family life. Because I know those of you who are married didn't get married because to have someone to control. You want to get able to have a companion to cry with, to share your feelings with, and be brutally authentic with, mentally, physically and spiritually. Because that's who they are. I'm hurting today. Not to be afraid to say that, I'm hurting today. I'm not in a good place, my wife, I'm not in a good place, my husband, I'm not in a good place, my children, so, you know, if you're going to rebel, do it nicely for me. They're going to think, what? What do you mean, man, rebel? If you're brutally honest and use reverse psychology on children, it works 95% of the time. And the other 5% you can control because you know how to control your own emotions. I'm sure most of us here have got a slight anger problem. A slight anger problem. And some of us have got a huge anger problem that goes to the levels of rage. And you don't know why you get frustrated and get really angry and start breaking things in the house. Or even hitting your wife. Or being rebellious and breaking up things and making your mother or father afraid for you. Or making your family afraid of you. Just tell them what you're feeling. And most of the time that people show their anger, they're covering up a need, they're covering up their vulnerability, they're defending it. But behind that anger is pain. I know, I teach anger management. It's pain, that's all it is. And I've sat there with brothers, and we've brought it's a relationship. It doesn't mean I can't say, yeah, I brought him down to this level. Allah does everything. It's through intention. And we've sat together as a working relationship and brought him to a sense of rage where you see red in the eyes, to a sense of a little child. And so, yeah, when I was 7 years old, this happened to me. Bang. That's why you're frustrated. It's called residual emotion from before. You don't know what it is. It's residual emotion. Something happened to you before. The same way, maybe your father was very bad and he hit your mum all the time and everything was bad, and then all of a sudden everything became nice, but then he had this trauma. Childhood trauma. Why did I break that? And I've so mostly done things you think, that's not me. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? I didn't want to say this, I didn't want to do that. And that's the hierarchy of value. If I was to ask you, or just make a statement to you, and I love saying this, believe me, I enjoy saying this, is I'm the most successful person I know. Me, Ramiz. I am. I'm telling you now, I'm the most successful person I know. What comes to mind? Come on, please. What comes to mind?
Proud.
Arrogance? Anything else?
Being proud.
Proud. Nothing else? It tells me about your success definition by saying that. It depends on your definition of success. Before I give my definition of success, the majority of people, the success is defined by dunya, obviously, dunya, fulfilling a project for some teacher in school for free. But even though your dad says to you, clean your room and I'll give you £10 at the end of the week, you still rebel. Think about that. Think about that. When I deal with family counselling, that's what I hear. That the father's always saying, when the teacher, who's not even a Muslim, says to my son, you've got to have homework in by the end of the week, what does that child do? Damn, he's on it. There's smoke coming off the keyboard. He's on it. But when I say to him, do something, he rebels. It's a problem there, isn't it? You can't say, well, that's a reality. What can we do? No, there's a serious problem there. It's a huge problem. Nothing to be laughed at. The father hasn't developed, so you can't give the right development to the child. You can't blame the child, you blame yourself. But not in a bad way. Just, let's move from now. Let's grab the bull by its horns, and just control it so there's less breakages, and just do what you need to be done. So, the reason I say I'm the most successful person that I know is not arrogance, because I'm a Muslim. And that's all that matters. My hierarchy of value isn't, oh, I've got to be a doctor, an engineer, or whatever. Because I've got certificates from here to there. Alhamdulillah. Kullu khayr min Allah. And I've got certificates from nothing. I can mention 20 certificates I've got. No problem for me. But that's not my success. Wallahi, it's not. It's not being potentially humble. I'm just giving you to recognize your own success. But you are a Muslim. You've been chosen by Al-Fatih, the originator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be here now. That is success. On a Sunday afternoon, we're in Richmond, they're sitting outside the pubs drinking their lives away. Well, the kids are smoking pot in the corners there, thinking, oh yeah, I'm the bad gangster. The West Side. Whatever. So, this is the reality we live in. You're successful because Allah wakes you up for Fajr in the morning. Not you wake yourself up. How many times you set your alarm and you woke up? And sometimes you set your alarm, you don't wake up. So when you wake up, you say Alhamdulillah. And you say Alhamdulillah again for Allah waking you up. It's a deepness that we have to establish through the Quran and Sunnah. And that only comes from Iman. That only comes from right intention. And we have to see that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen you. You have to say, my success is that I'm a Muslim, and that's it. Everything else is a bonus. You wake up in the morning and you pray Fajr, that's it. Alhamdulillah, that's it. You're successful. Unless you miss Dhuhr and Asr. You're successful. So define, I am successful. Everybody say I'm successful. I'm successful. Say it, don't be proud, don't resist it, say it, I'm successful. Why? I'm a Muslim. And recognize that. Don't take it for granted. You know, who are you wearing the beard for? Who are you wearing the thobe for? Who are you acting like a Muslim for? To show your brother and says, look, alhamdulillah, look at me. This is the latest fashion. Make your dhahir in connection with the batin, the inner and the outer, the same. And the Chinese say, mind, body and spirit is one. We have to do the same. We're Muslims are better than that. You can't say, how many times you say alhamdulillah, you don't really feel it here? You feel it but not to the degree. Your tongue is in dhikr, your heart is in dhikr. Say alhamdulillah, mashallah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, mashallah, alhamdulillah. But you're not really feeling it. There's a problem there. My point of today's discussion, brothers and sisters, is that you recognize these things. The link between your tongue and your heart. The link between your communication between people, especially your family, as fathers, as sons, as mothers, as daughters, as parents, as grandparents. That's my own. If I get that message across today, that you can say, right, I said alhamdulillah, but I can recognize it in my heart. If there's something about it, alhamdulillah. That's enough for me today. That's enough for me today. So, recognition of being a good father and husband is looking in that mirror and asking yourself some serious questions that I have some problems I need to deal with. And I'll leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rest of it, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.